going to take a look at some various chord progressions, and we're going to start with C major. And first off, this series of videos will be for beginners. I've had a request to do a series just on how to do, finger positions when you're first learning chords and things, when you first pick up the guitar. So I'll briefly share with you the little bit that I know. I started out playing guitar a long time ago, and music is my madness. I don't do it professionally, but every free moment I have, I do it because I love it. Okay, and that's probably why a lot of you are doing it. Although some of you may end up doing it professionally, and that would be great. But the first guitar that I got was an acoustic guitar, and I still have an acoustic guitar. I have several guitars. Today I'm using an Ibanez, but it was a bad guitar. Bought it at a thrift shop, and I guess it had been stored in the attic, so it had a bow in the neck. And a bow means, the wood was warped between the neck and the strings. So, to make chords properly, to make it sound right, or to make the tone sound properly, you have to depress the string all the way down on the fretboard in exactly the right position. And if you have a bad guitar, or, especially on an acoustic or like an old acoustic that has a bow in the neck, then it's going to make learning chords a bit more challenging. Because, to start out with, you're not going to have the strength in your fingers that you need to make the chords. And, having a guitar with a bowed neck, that makes it even harder because you have to press down further. So what I'm trying to do is basically encourage you, if you're just starting out, to stick with it. You need to think of practicing a musical instrument kind of like working out. You wouldn't go to the gym and work out and expect in one day to be all buff, be a bodybuilder. You'd have to do it for months, maybe years. You have to make a lifestyle out of working out. And, I guess I probably should. I could definitely lose a few pounds there. But learning a musical instrument is the same way. It's just something that you have to kind of almost make it a lifestyle or a hobby, such that, when you're not working and when you've got some free time, you pick up your instrument and you practice and you practice and you practice and you practice. And I heard someone say, I can't remember who, years and years ago, that that the secret to becoming a masterful musician is 10,000 hours of practice. And I've nowhere reached near that yet. But obviously, the more you practice, the better you're going to get. And here's what's going to happen when you start out. Your fingers aren't going to have the muscles necessary to depress the strings on the fretboard for chording. So what you've got to do is you've got to build up these muscles here. And they're not going to have the flexibility or the dexterity, such that, for some chords, you need to be able to reach your fingers over other fingers and kind of stretch your fingers out. And it's going to hurt. You're going to feel a little bit of pain, maybe some cramping, until you get used to it. But if you stick with it, if you don't give up, eventually your fingers will start to loosen up. They'll become more flexible and, sort of more acrobatic, more dexterous, and they'll become stronger. So you'll be able to play longer, you'll be able to play faster. So you want to build up strength, you also want to build up speed, and that is, you want to decrease the amount of time that it takes you to move your fingers around on the fretboard to press different strings and make different chords. Some songs aren't so bad, they have a very slow harmonic rhythm, which means they change between chords, very slowly. But other songs have a very rapid harmonic rhythm, which means, they kind of bang one chord and then go into another very, very rapidly, very fast. And for that, you're going to want to practice, finger technique and chording as far as chords on the fretboard. So you're building strength, you're building dexterity and agility. And then last, you also want to build up a little bit of a callus on your fingertips, okay? When I first started out, the friction as you move your hands up and down the metal strings on the fretboard, unless you got nylon, you're learning classical guitar, but I'm assuming you have either an acoustic, steel string guitar or an electric guitar or something. Most people, that's what they start out with. But even still, regardless of the type of guitar you have, it's going to wear the skin off on the tips of your fingers when you first start. So what will happen is you'll get blisters, and those blisters will rise, and eventually they'll pop. And my fingers even bled a little bit when I first started. But eventually, you'll develop calluses on your fingertips, okay? And that's actually a good thing. Most people don't like calluses, but when it comes to playing guitar, that's a good thing, because that will enable you to play for longer, and your fingers won't hurt as much. You'll be able to press down you know, and play for a lot longer periods without experiencing the soreness or the blistering on your fingertips that comes when you don't have calluses. So I'm not trying to be too wordy or talkative here, but the point in bringing all of this up is, you know, I'm trying to encourage you as a beginner, don't give up. You just have to stick with it. You have to keep at it until your fingers get strong enough and fast enough, until you build up the calluses and things, okay? So don't be discouraged if, you know, you don't play guitar as good as, you know, your friend or your buddy or some famous person. Okay, so that being said, what's a good place to start? Let's look at key signatures or keys. A key signature or a key is a collection of chords that all go together. And if we have time, we may do another series on music theory, and we'll talk about like circle progressions or the progression of fifths. But for now, just in the back of your mind, kind of remember a key signature is a collection of chords that go together. A lot of songs only use one key or one key signature. And so if you know all the chords that go with that key, then you can quickly and easily learn that song. Now some songs, they do what's called modulation, so they'll modulate from one key to another, or maybe even more than two. They may have 3 or 4 keys. But a lot of songs are only in one key. And so learning the collections of chords that go with different keys and different key signatures is going to help you, you know, learn to play guitar. It's going to help you learn to play songs, and that's what I focus on. You know, I'm not a lead guitarist. I know a few licks, but I'm not really a good lead guitarist. I pretty much just, you know, like to play chords on the acoustic guitar, and I like to learn songs. I like folk music. I like all kinds of music. But what really helps me is just learning one song after another in different keys. And that's why I posted so many songs and videos of so many songs. You know, you can get bored if all you did was sit there and just practice, you know, finger techniques and chords. I can see how you could get very bored with playing guitar very quickly, and then you might give up and not, you know, persevere. On the other hand, if you practice by learning songs such that you learn a different song each time, you know, you learn a new technique or a new chord or a new key signature, it's going to make it fun for you and interesting. It's going to help you remember it, and it's going to motivate you to keep at it. So as you learn each key or key signature, I recommend learning a song that's played in that key. You know, learn as many different songs as you can in as many different keys. And it just makes it more interesting, more fun. It's going to help you remember, and it's going to motivate you to learn those key signatures. Now, one of the first things that you'll have to decide, you know, are you left-handed or are you right-handed? And I'm right-handed, so I play the fretboard with my left hand. If not, you might string your guitar from the opposite side. You know, that's fine. So you would simply have to invert the things that we're doing, but most people probably are going to be playing the fretboard with their left hand. So that being said, there are several different methods with which you can use your right hand. All right, so you strum using your right hand. You can use a pick. Okay, a lot of people use a pick like that. And you can basically just strum the chords all together, or you can do sort of an arpeggio, one note at a time. Alright, using a pick. Another popular technique that people use is called fingerstyle, and that's flat picking or fingerstyle, and it comes from classical guitar. And you might have heard people that, you know, play a classical guitar with like nylon strings, and you know, I'll do like green sleeves, or What Child Is This? So you use more than one finger. In this case, I'm using up to 4 fingers simultaneously. And if I weren't holding the pick of my pinky, I'd be using all 5. And you can do something called planting, which is a classical guitar technique, where you basically just, you pick all the strings at the same time. And it gives it a different sound from strumming. If I strum versus plant. Okay, and I can also do this. Alright, so just to give you an idea, there are different techniques with which you can use your right hand. There are other techniques we'll go through in time, as we have time to cover, using the left hand. You can do harmonics, and you can hammer on and hammer off, or You know, take both hands and use them on the fretboard like this. You know, there's harmonics and things that you can play. Okay? But we'll start out with the basics. The most basic key or key signature that you can learn to play in is C major. And the reason is because there's no sharps and there's no flats. If you want to think of sharps and flats, think of them as like the black notes on a piano keyboard. So the key of C major, it's a great key to learn first because it simplifies the theory, the music theory behind things. Not having to worry about the sharps and the flats and so forth. And every collection of chords that goes in each key signature conforms to certain rules in music theory. Circle progressions, a circle of fifths and things. Dominants being 1, 4, 5, minors being 2, 3, and 6. And again, we'll go over this at a later time, but I'm afraid, you know, I'm having a hard time figuring out how to organize these videos, and I'm afraid I don't want to give you too much to worry about at one time. So I think before we get into all the music theory, we ought to maybe just go over the finger positions and learning some chords and things. So let's learn our very first key signature. And then, you know, go out and pick a song that you like and practice, you know, learn to play that song using the chords after you've learned the chords. That's the way that I learned to play, and that's the way that I still practice. You know, there are still keys that, you know, I don't use very frequently, and I have to practice, or I have to learn a new chord every now and then. And so then what I'll do is I'll go and I'll find a song that uses that chord, and I'll practice that song, and that way I remember the new chord, and I also learn a new song. Makes it fun, and it helps it stick. So to go through, let's start out with C. And a C major chord, there's several ways we can do it. But basically it's 3 fingers, and let's go through the strings here. This is the E string here on the top, E2. This is an A string, okay? This is the D string, and it corresponds to the musical note on the keyboard. If you were to strike a note on the keyboard, this would be the E note. This would be the A note, right? This right here would be the D note. This is the G string, ha ha ha, a lot of people joke about that, but it's what it's called, the G string. This is the B string, and then this is E1, all right, the very first E string. So this string and this string are both E, but they're octaves apart. And then sandwiched in between it, you have B, G, D, and A. And then to access notes, you simply move up. So think of the alphabet. Even if you don't know how to read music or you don't, you know music, you understand the alphabet. So if this were the E string, and I were to go up a fret, that's F. Okay, 1 semitone, what's called a semitone. 2 semitones, I go from E to F, and then 2, that's G. Okay, so the way the notes work, if you learn lead or if you play riffs along with your chords, you know, it works in a symmetrical fashion, going up and down the alphabet. All right, so this is the B string, right? Okay, this is the A string. So here, this would be a B, and that would be a C. But by itself, it's an A string. Okay. Not really going to help you as far as making chords, but it might be nice to know which notes the strings are. And then as you learn to read tablature, or as you learn to read chord charts, you'll recognize the fret position, and you'll recognize the particular string where you're supposed to depress your finger. Okay. Try to make this as short as possible. I think I've gone way too long, or it's going to be an enormously long, boring video. I apologize. I had a hard time trying to think of how I could organize this. It's much easier just playing a song, but you know, the feedback I'm getting is that people need a little more than that. They want to see finger positions and things, so I'll try to strike a mixture between doing this in a detailed fashion that helps you, but also keeping it brief enough to where you can actually watch the whole video without falling asleep.